I support our cause. I support our appeal over to the conscription bill. Would you? Peaceable chapter. Try to support our anti-conscription movement. I'd like to support our fellowship. Yes. Do you like one? I'd like to support the anti-conscription fellowship. Thank you very much. Would you like to support our anti-conscription fellowship? So, people continue to show their admiration for our cause.
You know, I think I must have a whole goose at home. In fact, if ever my pillows need a good stuffing, which one's that? Oh. An appeal to all those who value our traditional British freedom. We believe in the brotherhood, in the sanctity of human life and personality. We will not kill. While the soul of Britain lives, our witness cannot be in vain. Yes. Yes, I remember signing this. You think it'll do the trick?
Oh, I don't know. You know, for many people, this is dangerous stuff. The word is people writing to the Home Office, informing them of our activities.
And who are these people with too much time on their hands?
A mysterious retired police officer, complaining that he was handed that very leaflet.
Armchair coppers, eh?
Today's Daily Mirror. You seen it?
No.
Article mentioning the premises of the Independent Labour Party near Swansea, raided by the police on Saturday. Material confiscated.
Any arrests?
It's all rather murky. Still, these are the very people we need to support.
Starting now, eh?
Yes, starting now.
Mrs. Brocklesby, I can hear you. Come on in, Mrs. Brocklesby. Hello, Mrs. Brocklesby. Mrs. Brocklesby, Mr. Allen. Mrs. Brocklesby's son is in need of our counsel.
Mrs. Brocklesby, pleasure. So, what is his name?
Bert's his name. Yes, he's applied to the local tribunal for exemption from military service.
Oh, is it? And you need our...
Just want to know what'll happen to him.
Well, that depends. The military acts make it compulsory for all men aged between 19 and 41 or unmarried or widowed without children to join up.
There are, however, 4 cases in which a local tribunal can offer a certificate of exemption. If it is in the national interest that he be involved in some other work or training for some such work. If hardship, serious hardship would ensue owing to exceptional financial or business obligations.
Or domestic position.
Ill health, infirmity, or...
conscientious objection to the undertaking of combatant service.
Yes.
Well, the last one. He has a conscientious objection, you see. Not that I agree with him, mind. In fact, I go so far as to say I strongly disagree with him. I mean, we should support the war effort. There's lads dying, making the sacrifice. And who'd stop the un if we were all to just... But I've seen how families can be torn apart through such disagreements. I'm a Christian woman, Mr. Brockway, Mr. Allen, and I believe in live and let live. So I've decided to support him in his decision.
Oh, that's very honourable of you, Mrs. Brocklesby. Tell me, does he reject all military work, or is he willing to undertake non-combatant service?
No, none of that. He's what you might call an all-or-nothing sort of fella. Always has been.
It sounds very brave to me.
Or foolish.
You know, it is likely that things have become more difficult for him. It isn't easy, the life of an absolutist. Can you tell us anything else about your son, Mrs. Brocklesby? Something that shows him in a favourable light.
Well, he's a preacher, Methodist, always had a strong religious conviction, that's part of it, and always a sensitive lad. He's an artist too. You might say he has a gift for it.
Go on, any family?
Well, he's not married, if that's what you... Engaged, though. Young Annie, lovely girl. And we're prepared to support him in his decision, Mr. Brocklesby and I.
That's important.
What does Mr. Brocklesby do?
Man of many parts, just like our Bert. Justice of the Peace, chairman of the parish council, chairman of the War Fund Committee. I could go on.
I meant for a living.
Oh, he's a grocer.
Pillar of the community, that's good.
Mrs. Brocklesby, I'm not going to mince words with you. In all likelihood, your son will face scorn and humiliation. That's just the way the situation is, the national temperament. Most people don't favour our position. We are a minority. Yes, but your son sounds like he's made of the strong stuff. A man of principle and faith. That will hold him in good stead.
So, the first thing we need to do is set up a meeting with him to prepare him for this tribunal. I suggest we do that as quickly as possible, Mrs. Brocklesby. We will be in touch shortly.
Thank you, gentlemen. I must say, I feel a little easier now. Two of those gentlemen suggested, say, I'll work on a farm or something.
They also said I should follow the dictates of my conscience.
Stubborn you are. Always have been. I just don't understand why.
Oh, you should. You, of all people, who brought me up to be a Christian and took me to church every Sunday, who told me that every word in the Bible is true. The word of God.
What about your brothers? I taught them Bible too, didn't I? They haven't flinched from their duty. Harold's in the officer training corps. He's itching to join up as soon as he's old enough. And Georgie, well, naturally is not fit enough, but he still does his bit in recruiting office.
But I'm not my brothers. My first duty is to God. And he gave us a set of commandments, didn't he? Thou shalt not kill. Remember that, mother.
Don't you get on your sanctimonious high horse with me. And while we're on the subject, here's another one for you. Honour thy father and mother.
I do!
Really? Well, tell me, son, where's the honour in this? Shame, boy. Shame on all family. I mean, think of what you think he'll feel when people brand his son a coward. And what about me? Recruiting office right next door. How am I supposed to walk past that every day and hold my head up?
Look, I don't want to hurt you. I just think that you and I have very different ideas on what is honourable and what is shameful.
Bert.
Would the next applicant step forward, please?
State your name for court.
Bert Brocklesby.
And would you state the reason for which you seek exemption from military service?
I'm appealing for exemption from military service on conscientious grounds because war is incompatible with Christian principles and therefore I cannot conscientiously take part in it.
Tell me, Mr. Brocklesby, would your conscience prevent you from taking up arms in defence of yourself and those dearest to you?
I'm not sure that's quite...
Just answer the question. Would your conscience prevent you from taking up arms in defence of yourself and your loved ones?
You mean my family?
That's usually what is meant by loved ones, yes.
I can't in all conscience...
Speak up for the court, please.
No! My conscience would dictate against it. It would be against my principles.
Your Christian principles?
That's right. I am a Christian.
And would these principles prevent you from striking me back if I were to strike you?
I'm sorry?
Perfectly clear. If I were to strike you, right here, right now, in this courtroom, wherever, would you strike me back?
No. According to my principles, I could do no such thing.
Come, Mr. Brocklesby. Are you really telling me if I knocked your tooth out, you would knock out a couple of mine in retaliation?
Mr. Clark, where is this leading?
Your Honour, I am simply examining the applicant's rather unlikely claim that he would not resort to violence under any circumstance, not even self-defence.
Okay, well, could you hurry up and get on with it, please? We do have other applicants to appraise before lunch, and, my wife's got a stew on.
Your Honour. Well, Mr. Brocklesby, straight answer then. I knock out your front teeth, you give me some black, eh? Or not?
I would not strike you, sir. No.
You would not strike me? No?
No.
What would you do? You turn the other cheek?
Not necessarily.
What would you do? Run away? Like a coward?
I don't believe myself to be a coward. But all this, it's all hypothetical.
Supposing you were in a corner, back to the wall, and 6 men were stood before you, with open sword or fixed bayonet. Would you not do something if you had, say, a revolver in your hand?
The 6th commandment says, thou shalt not kill. I take that to mean it is better to be killed than to kill someone else.
You just give up and die.
Yes, and I'd be free of this miserable world. But all this, it's all hypothetical.
Yes, can we please get on with it, Mr. Clark? Perhaps draw this line of questioning to its conclusion.
Your Honour, I'm merely testing out the veracity of the applicant's claim.
Well, test it a little quicker, can you?
Certainly, Your Honour. Well then, briefly now, let us consider the plight of Belgium.
Belgium?
A small country between France and Germany.
Yes, I'm aware of what Belgium is. What of it?
As many in this tribunal well know, 2 years ago, Belgium found itself breached by the full might of the German army. Countless atrocities were perpetrated against the civilian population. Let us consider then what would happen if a similar situation were to happen here. Say, Conisbrough Castle.
Oh, no, we're not back there again, are
Conisbrough Castle were to suffer a similar fate to plucky little Belgium. What, I wonder, would the applicant's reaction be?
I couldn't rightly say.
Well, but you're a man of wit and imagination, are you not? You can conjecture. As a man of the world, you can, what would you do if plucky little Belgium was invaded? Suppose that happened here. Are you really saying that your conscience would not allow you to strike down such an aggressor? I'm talking a purely defensive capacity.
Defensive or otherwise, no man is justified in taking life.
You would really stand by and see women and children cut to pieces and not raise a sword in opposition?
Well, obviously, I would do my best to prevent anything like that from happening. But, as the case is merely hypothetical, who's to say there wouldn't be an opportunity of conducting them to safety, well in advance of any such outcome arising?
To be clear then, you'd run away.
I would run from harm's way.
And was there a chance for those poor souls in Belgium to run away?
Belgium was different.
Oh, how so?
In the case of Belgium, the menfolk went away and left the women to the tender mercies of the Germans.
And you wouldn't do that?
If such a thing were to occur here, I would take them with me.
Very well. Mr. Brocklesby, have you any objection to non-combatant service?
I do.
On what grounds?
I would still be supporting men actively engaged in the killing of other men. I would be part of the same machinery.
Oh, machinery now, is it?
What if the government were to offer you a place on a mine sweeping? You'd certainly be saving lives then. Possibly hundreds of lives.
Minesweepers are only allowed to sweep German mines. Yes?
Of course, Your Honour.
But it would still be saving lives.
Selective lives.
So am I to take it then that you would be against going minesweeping?
I would.
Too much danger, eh?
Mr. Clark, I'm speaking now. Mr. Brocklesby, is the court aware that you belong to a brotherhood of some 50 or 60 men, all of whom privately agreed not to comply with anything this court advises or directs?
I have never made a secret of the fact. But just one thing.
Yes.
The membership is closer to 5,000.
And what about in this locality?
About 45, I'd say.
45 men. All of whom avow that it is better to offer one's life than to take another?
Yes. But just to be clear, I am ready to die for my principles. Furthermore, I am standing up for the freedom of conscience of all Englishmen.
Good for you.
You cannot bring evidence to prove conscientious objection. The only way to prove it is to suffer for it, and if necessary, die for it. As there have been thousands of men who've been ready to sacrifice their lives for their country, it would be a pity if some were not prepared to sacrifice them for a higher principle.
I take it you're a local preacher.
I am.
Well, I think you better go and preach somewhere else. All right, let's get down to it. Mr. Brocklesby, I do not accept the validity of your stated reason for not accepting non-combatant war work, which would clearly exempt you from any possibility of taking human life. The judgment of this court is therefore that you should be placed in the non-combatant corps to fulfill non-combatant war duties. Next applicant, please. Next applicant!
two motions before us. What I suggest is that we debate each motion briefly, and that I imply on behalf of the government. First is the name of Power. Second is the name of Charmwood. Lord Charmwood. Are you ready, Lord Charmwood? In your time. Lord Power.
My lords,
State your motion to the House.
I would like the court or a commission to consider the case of conscientious objectors, subject to successive terms of imprisonment. At present, there are 1,300 conscientious objectors in prison. Of those, 2/3 are in prison for a second, third, fourth, or even fifth time. Mr. Long, the minister conducting the bill through the House of Commons, has said, and I quote, "Nobody in the government wants the horror of men who for conscience sake are prepared to face the consequences being thrown into jail for a long time. Now, however, the act which was intended to prevent this is operating in such a way as to bring this very situation about. The principle I therefore wish to invoke is that the punishment should fit the crime."
Quite.
Now, at present, when a man has undergone the terms of imprisonment under the civil power, he once more finds himself immediately under military power and is therefore subject to a fresh court, a military court. Now, I would argue that a man who, on the question of conscience, refuses to obey the mandate of his country is a civil offender and ought to be punished as such.
This is war.
Now, okay, I see there is a schism in the House on this point. So I would endeavour to offer an example of what happens in the current system as it now stands. Pardon me. Oh, fiddly. Mr. Stephen Hobhouse, arrested 4th February, taken to camp, put into khaki, court-martialed and imprisoned in Wormwood Scrubs. Now, in May of this year, after a second court-martial, Mr. Hobhouse has been returned to prison and since August has been detained in solitary confinement in Exeter Jail. Now, as to Mr. Hobhouse's condition, quite simply, he is ruined in mind and body. Despite this, and despite the fact that a medical examination has found him unfit for hard labour, he still is compelled to a routine of hard labour. But hard labour aside, I do not believe it is possible for anyone forced to endure the barbaric practices of solitary confinement to escape without some permanent detriment to mind and body. Therefore, I urge the House to consider the consequences on such individuals, particularly those individuals facing unrelenting and successive terms of imprisonment.
Thank you, Lord Barber. You may stand down. My noble Lord Charmwood.
Well, the previous speaker has presented an appeal for clemency that I find both indulgent and frankly unjustifiable. Ha! As it stands, this country is making great and terrible demands upon a large number of its citizens, and in every class of the community, those demands are being met with a cheerful devotion which need in no way seek to elicit any praise or approval from myself or any other member of this House. What I talk of, gentlemen, is duty. Duty and the fundamental principle that a man should help his neighbour in times of trouble. This is the most venerable of all laws. And I must say, I find the trampling underfoot of this law somewhat callous. The noble lord played to our sympathies most eloquently with his description of individual suffering. But do not be fooled. statements he made were made in substantial contradiction with those given by the prison authorities and their trusted medical advisors.
Liar!
Say they are moderately satisfied with the young men's health, and therefore I am moved to refute the gentleman's allegations and urge the House not to countenance his request.
My noble lord fails to understand the very words he speaks. I remember the late Mr. John Bright quoting a couplet of a Puritan poet. He said, and I quote, "There is on earth a yet auguster thing, veiled though it be then Parliament or King." Now that was, my lords, the conscience of a man he was referring to. And just to be clear, they venerated Parliament or King in much the same way we venerate the state today. Supreme in every action or thought of the citizen. Now, the difficulty I have in addressing the noble lord is that I strongly suspect he does not know what is meant by supremacy of conscience. And what we mean when we say we are citizens, but we are also Christians. And we are Christians above and beyond being citizens. And that we are human beings beyond and above being citizens.
Now, this is going too far.
I can see that some of you remain unconvinced. But answer me this. Does the state have the right to control the religious observances and the practices of the individual? And does the state have the right to curtail freedom of religious expression for reasons of political expediency?
I think we have heard enough.
Quite simply, these men that ye pour scorn upon, they do not shirk war in pursuit of ease. Far from it. They are not spurning war because they are afraid to meet death. They are as ready to meet death as any man. They are as courageous as those men out there in the trenches.
Can we please remove this?
Do they fear suffering? Do they fear suffering? No. Because they have suffered more than most for their beliefs, for their convictions. And can the House not see the possible danger that in denying these men their basic human rights, they are simply making martyrs out of them? And that our learned friends' endorsement of the continuation of their dire predicament will, in fact, only rouse sympathy from the public at large. A public that, far from Lord Charnwood's cynical assessment of their character, perhaps modelled on his own person, is not as hard-hearted as we are led to believe.
I think the Lordship has made his point. Let me sit down, Lord Powell. Now, I gave a promise the other day, but I would consider the Home Secretary of the Secretary of State for War the conditions in which these men live, whether in the interest of humanity and for the sake of their health, any relaxation of the rules should be made. Now, I wish it to be known.
Your Lord,
No. I wish it to be understood that this pledge will be carried out, and furthermore, an announcement made to the House at the earliest opportunity. Now, what was it?
May I just continue what I was about to say?
I've got my noble friend will not press his point. House adjourned.
Dear Mother, I was taken first to Pontefract Barracks, and then Richmond Castle, along with 15 other objectors who all refused orders. This is where I'm being held while the powers that be try and decide what to do with me next. The men in Richmond Castle come from all walks of life. There's young Norman Gordy, an up-and-coming footballer who plays for Sunderland. Then there's Alfred Motley, a Quaker who works at the Rowntrees factory in York. My dearest mother, I have to tell you, my first night in Richmond was the most uncomfortable night in my life. The cell sleeps about 15, and there are 5 broad shelves hinged to the wall, each accommodating 3 men. The men who couldn't get on a shelf slept on the floor. The stench of the men compressed together in such a small space is made worse by the stench of the latrine in the corner. The drain choked and urine seeped across the floor. I tried to find a dry patch in the corner. It certainly doesn't feel that I'm suffering in a noble cause. I know these inconveniences are paltry compared to the suffering millions are forced to endure in this cursed war. But for a man from a comfortable home, conditions are bad enough. We were given 2 blankets, one for cover and one for mattress. I've no pillow. For that I use my teacher's Bible, which for many years has given light and strength, and now holds me head up in more ways than one.
When I say stand to attention, you stand. Up. I said up. Up.
I didn't mean...
Shut up. Shut up. I'm speaking now. This ain't your show no more, pal. No audience here, just me. And I'm very particular. Look at you. You're a bleeding disgrace. Our countrymen are out there, on the front, dying. And you're in here, all safe and cozy like. It's pitiful. You go ahead, boy. You just disobey our orders. You see where that gets you, okay? We tame lions here!
And you also tame lambs.
You are? You trying to be funny now, Conchi? Come here.
Guide me.
Today, I have to confess, I deliberately antagonized the guard so that he'd put me in solitary confinement. He couldn't understand why I wished, according to army ideas, to step up my punishment, as he put it. But in this little cell, I can feel the peace of heaven, away from the smell of urine and small talk. I thank God and feel more at peace than any time since August 1914. Please tell Annie I miss her. It's perhaps the hardest part of being here, never to see her lovely face. I've drawn a picture of her on my wall to keep me company. I will see you soon, though, and you also. My dearest mother, please pray for me and know that I always remain your loving son. I've been given white feathers by folk I thought were my friends. And one of the neighbours told my husband that if he were a real man, he'd force Bertie to change his mind. But old Brock, that's what everyone round here calls him, would have none of it. Do you know what he told them? I'd rather Bert be shot for his beliefs than abandon them. Says he's right proud of him. I thought I'd be ashamed. But you know what? I'm proud too.
Right, Pastor. Get your boots on. Grab your Bible, we're going on a holiday.
What?
Yeah, I hear it's lovely this time of year. Where? Where you should have been all along, sunshine. Northern France. I hear the weather's beautiful. Certainly better than this shithole. Who knows? Maybe a change of scenery will do you good. Huh? New perspective, change your heart.
I don't understand. Why are they sending me to France? They know I won't fight.
That's what you tell us. But is that what you're going to tell them? They've got more power out there, you see. On the front, I mean, all we can do here is, stick in solitary, keep your rations. But no, out there, it's a different ball game.
Whatever they threaten, it won't make a difference.
Yeah. Take it up with them, eh? Although, I gotta say, I don't fancy your chances much. Alright, get your stuff together. Be back in 10. Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. While you with Lucifer to light your fag. Smile, boy, that's the style.
Corporal, would you please tell the court why the prisoner is here?
On the night in question, I was in the regimental office. Captain Robinson explained to the prisoner that it was a sin to disobey orders. It was also explained to said prisoner that he would be given an order which, if disobeyed, would result in a court-martial.
And did Captain Robinson say anything else?
Yes, sir. The punishment for disobeying the order would be sentence of death.
And what happened?
Well, I was standing in detention, and Captain Robinson gave the order to fall in line, fall in behind me.
And?
Right turn, quick march.
Did he comply? Corporal, did the prisoner comply?
No, sir. He did not.
Very well. Prisoner number 23, step forward, please. Will you state your name for the court?
John Bert Brocklesby.
You don't have a rank?
None that I recognise.
Very well. Private Brocklesby, is this a account of your disobedience true?
I would hesitate to call it disobedience, sir. I answer to a higher authority.
Nevertheless, you refused to obey the command issued by Captain Robinson. Now speak up for the court.
Yes, sir.
Have you anything to say in your defence?
Just that. In the absence of any legal representation which has been denied me by this court, I answer to a higher authority. God. More specifically, the commandment, thou shalt not kill. For the record, all war is repugnant to me, and therefore my conscience won't allow me to obey a military order. I would like to point out, though, I did not mean to show the officer in question any personal discourtesy. It is purely the authority invested in him that I refuse to obey.
So you admit that you disobeyed an order?
I admit I refuse to comply with an order issued by Captain Robinson.
Have the consequences of such a refusal been explained to you?
Certain outcomes have been set out, yes.
Very well. I must now move to our sentence. The sentence of this court is death by firing squad. Confirmed by the Commander-in-Chief.
Sir, our wires just come through from the Prime Minister.
Yes? Oh, give it here. When did you receive this?
Just now, sir.
Most irregular. On the orders of the Prime Minister, this sentence is hereby commuted to 10 years penal servitude. Court adjourned.
I may not have died in France, but I lost my life all the same. My old life in Conisborough, that is. I had a quiet sense of purpose. Before the war, I always felt I belonged. Teaching in the school and preaching in the chapel. But all that's over now. I'm not even welcome there anymore. So, I've decided to go to Vienna. From what I've heard, the post-war conditions are dreadful and there are children starving. The way I see it, there's important work to be done and I want to feel useful again. I want my life to mean something, somehow. It was the last straw for Annie, though. My fiancé. But she stood by me through it all, the prisons, the French camp, the courtmartial. She said she wanted an ordinary life. But what's ordinary anymore? Can anybody tell me? The war turned everything upside down. I don't think it will be the same again. Not really. Still, all we can do is hope. Hope and pray. That's all I know. Where there's life, there's hope. Guide me, O thou great Redeemer, pilgrim through this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand.